Hurry and come to the hospital. There's no time.
According to my husband's explanation, the son suffered a serious head injury during club activities, and his life is in danger. Why do I have to go to the hospital? I retorted after hanging up the phone. I coldly dismissed my husband's words. But that child is... My husband is hiding a certain secret from me. However, that secret was inadvertently revealed due to a mistake on his part. The birthday cake for our son, which I reluctantly asked my rarely present husband to order and pick up, had an unbelievable error in it. What is this? What does it mean? The connection between my husband's suspicious behavior in the past and this revelation was enough to make me suspect his infidelity. I can't forgive this. He's been deceiving us all this time. As I gather evidence, my resentment toward my husband grows. And with a mistaken call from my husband as a catalyst, I begin to take action for retribution. My name is Cindy. I work in home care, and that's how I met a man named Michael during one of my visits. He was living with his wife, who had fallen ill and required care, along with their young son, Liam. Unfortunately, despite treatment efforts, Michael's wife passed away. Liam is only 3 years old, and it's challenging for him to cope without his mother, especially during such crucial times. Initially, my interactions with Michael were purely professional, but I couldn't help feeling sympathy for their situation. After his wife's passing, I no longer needed to visit their home for caregiving, so I lost track of how they were doing. However, fate intervened, and one day, I ran into Michael by chance in town. Since we had often conversed during my visits related to his wife's care, we decided to catch up over tea at a nearby cafe.
I appreciate all the help you provided back then.
I've been wondering how things have been for you since then. Are you doing well? Michael sighed.
Honestly, life without my wife has been incredibly challenging. And, if you don't mind, could you occasionally lend an ear? I don't have anyone else to talk to freely.
I nodded, willing to listen. His wife's passing had left him feeling despondent, and he was also struggling with how to connect with his young son. After exchanging contact information, we began communicating frequently. As our friendship deepened, I started to see Michael as more than just a friend. Eventually, he confessed his feelings to me. He proposed, with marriage in mind, but I hesitated due to concerns about Liam, his young son, accepting my presence. However, as I spent more time with Michael and interacted with Liam, my initial worries faded. Liam quickly grew fond of me, despite being a stepmother. During my days as a home caregiver, I empathized with him, unable to fully rely on his ailing mom. It was then that I made the decision to become his mom. Accepting Michael's proposal, we got married. In our discussions about our future life together, Michael earnestly requested that I quit my job and become a full-time homemaker. Although I had reservations, I reluctantly agreed. Liam was still young, and I believed focusing on household chores and childcare would be best. Thus, I stepped into the role of a homemaker, supporting Michael. His demanding job often kept him away from home, even on weekends. Although I felt a pang of loneliness despite our recent marriage, I persevered, knowing that my presence allowed Michael to focus on work without worry. Liam, adorable in his own way, grew attached to me and eventually started calling me Mom. Despite being my stepson, I couldn't help but adore Liam. However, despite Liam being at an adorable age, Michael rarely spent time playing with him. On weekends, he would simply claim to be working and head out. I couldn't help but harbor some frustration. One day, I noticed that the lunchbox I had prepared for my husband was left forgotten on the dining table. I called Michael to inform him about the forgotten lunch, but he didn't answer. Worried that he'd be hungry without lunch, I decided to take it to his workplace. Upon arriving at his office, I approached the receptionist and asked her to call Michael. However, her unexpected response caught me off guard.
I've checked, but it appears he hasn't come to work today.
I insisted that couldn't be true and even inquired with his department, only to be told that he was absent for the day. What on earth is going on? Where could he be? I wondered, but I couldn't press further, so I left the office. I tried calling my husband again, but still no answer. Even my messages remained unread. He had definitely left for work today, so where could he possibly be? With anxiety weighing on my mind, I waited for his return home. On that day, my husband returned home late as usual, and I confronted him, asking what was going on. They told me at your workplace that you hadn't come in today. What's going on? He hesitated for a moment, seemingly lost in thought, before stumbling through an explanation.
Well, it's like this. I encountered an elderly lady who had fallen and injured herself on my way to work. I ended up accompanying her to the hospital.
His excuse seemed almost unbelievable.
And because it was so sudden,
He continued.
I couldn't even notify the office. I'm sorry you went through the trouble of preparing lunch.
Despite his seemingly plausible reasoning, the initial unease I felt remained. However, realizing that pressing further might not yield any answers, I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and accept his explanation. Several years have passed since then. Liam, who was once a young child, has now become a middle school student, experiencing the typical rebellious phase. We've grown close, living together like a true parent and child. Despite Michael's continued busy work schedule, which leaves little time for family bonding, Liam's healthy growth remains a source of comfort. One day, I received an unexpected call from a friend I knew back in school. When I asked what was wrong, she seemed a bit flustered. She shared something quite startling.
I hesitated to tell you, but I witnessed your husband walking with an unfamiliar woman and a middle school-aged boy.
I couldn't believe it. But he didn't have any plans to go out together. Are you sure it wasn't a case of mistaken identity? My friend insisted.
No, it was definitely Michael. However, the person walking beside him wasn't you. That's why I got worried and reached out.
When was it that you saw someone who looked like Michael? I asked my friend about the date when she encountered a person resembling Michael.
Let me think. It was probably.
My friend checked the calendar for the date she mentioned. It was a holiday, but my husband should have been at work. Our son, Liam, also had a sports match that day. When I suggested that it might have been a case of mistaken identity, my friend apologized.
He looked so much like your husband that I couldn't help but worry.
At the time, I laughed it off, dismissing it as a misunderstanding. But her words continued to linger in the back of my mind. A few more years passed, and Liam's 14th birthday was approaching. Usually, I handled all the preparations for a birthday celebration, but due to a busy schedule, I asked my husband to order and pick up the cake this year. I always ordered from the same bakery. I provided him with the bakery's phone number and said, "Please take care of it." As expected, he made a face and muttered,
Why me?
but when I playfully insisted that occasionally doing something for the family wouldn't hurt, he reluctantly agreed. On Liam's birthday, my husband returned from work with the ordered cake. "Thank you," I said, grateful. He handed over the cake with an air of inconvenience. Our dining table was already adorned with Liam's favorite dishes. I opened the cake box, intending to serve it on plates. However, what I saw inside left me puzzled. It was an ordinary-sized decorated cake, but something felt off. As requested, a chocolate plate in the center read, "Happy Birthday." Yet, the name written there wasn't Liam's. "Lucas, who's that?" The chocolate plate read, "Lucas, happy birthday." I confronted my husband immediately, and he became visibly evasive. His explanation was suspicious.
I clearly gave them the correct name. Maybe the bakery made a mistake or mixed up the cakes.
It might be the case. If Liam's name was merely mistaken, he might not mind, but if it's a mix-up, it's better to inform the shop about the error. With that in mind, I called the bakery. "Excuse me. The name on the cake is different from what I ordered. Could it be a mistake or mix-up?" The person on the other end put me on hold to check. After a moment, they returned with an answer.
We've reviewed the order history, and it doesn't appear to be a mix-up. To prevent such errors, we always confirm the name with customers during ordering and again when handing over the cake.
When I described my husband's appearance during the pickup, it turned out that the person who checked and handed over the cake was coincidentally the same person on the other end of the phone.
I distinctly remember the customer confirming this name. There was no mistake.
Understood. It seems the mistake is on our end. I apologize for any inconvenience. I hung up, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Could someone really mix up our son's name, even with a busy schedule and limited family interactions? With an unsettled feeling, I suddenly recalled my friend's words. "Your husband was walking with an unfamiliar woman and a middle school-aged boy," she had said. The name on the nameplate wasn't Liam, but Lucas. The similar names. Could it be that my husband made the mistake? Perhaps he was hiding something, and this had been going on for quite some time. Unable to leave it unresolved, I secretly visited a private investigator's office to delve into my husband's background. If nothing came up, that would be ideal. I wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding. However, after receiving the investigation report from the private investigator, I was utterly shocked. What is this? Unbelievable. The report revealed an unthinkable truth. My husband had been hiding something from me. It turned out that even before our relationship, he was already involved with another woman. And that woman had a son around the same age as Liam. The boy's name? Lucas, the same name as on that birthday cake. My husband had entrusted Liam, his son from a previous marriage, to me while pretending to be busy with work and spending time with another family. He had maintained this double life without either Liam or me suspecting a thing. The nausea I felt toward him was overwhelming. There was no way I could forgive him. I clenched the report in my hands, determined to gather evidence of his affair without him realizing it. Continuing this marriage was impossible, but if we were to divorce, I wanted to leave him utterly defeated, with no excuses left. So, for now, I pretended not to notice anything, biding my time. One day, my husband called me in a panic.
"Hurry and come to the hospital. There's no time."
His explanation was that our son had suffered a head injury during club activities and was in critical condition. I immediately hung up the phone. It dawned on me that my husband had intended to call someone else but accidentally dialed my number. Why should I go to the hospital? After all, that child is. I scoffed at my husband's words after ending the call. Perhaps he was flustered, unaware that he had contacted the wrong person. Nearby, our son Liam noticed my unusual behavior and asked,
"Mom, what's wrong?"
"It's nothing, sweetheart. Thank you for always helping me," I replied, trying to maintain composure. Liam had been assisting me with my home care work since he entered middle school. With more time available due to Liam's growing independence, I had resumed my job as a home caregiver. My husband, already disinterested in me, didn't oppose my return to work. Liam seemed interested in caregiving, often lending a hand during weekends and after school. But our child getting injured? That couldn't be right. After all, my son was right here beside me. He must have been flustered and called the wrong person, I thought. In other words, the injured child was likely the son of his affair partner. My husband, in his panic, had mistakenly contacted me instead. That evening, my husband returned home with an innocent expression. From his demeanor, it was clear he hadn't yet realized that I was the one he had spoken to on the phone earlier. Welcome home. How is Lucas doing? I asked. Michael replied.
Oh, it was quite a scare, but fortunately, he's not in critical condition.
However, just seconds later, his expression turned to shock. Michael stammered.
You? Why that name?
You really are clueless. Maybe you were too flustered to notice, but the person you called during the day was me. Michael tried to deny it, but I wasn't fooled. No need to keep pretending. I know everything, I said, confronting him with the facts I had uncovered. His affair, and the fact that the other woman's child was named Lucas. Why? Why did you marry me while already involved with someone else? I confronted my husband with the long-standing question that had weighed on me. His answer was beyond belief. Perhaps realizing there was no escape, he scowled and began to confess.
It's become too bothersome to keep hiding, and maybe it's time. Why did I marry you? Because she said she didn't want to raise someone else's child. So, I pushed Liam onto you.
What? That's absurd. What do you think of Liam and me?
It couldn't be helped. I struggled too. It's not like I could just dump him in foster care because his mom died and I didn't want a child.
Unbelievable. Liam isn't a pet. He's your own son. Despite my condemnation, he showed no remorse.
But even you, Liam seemed to warm up to you and looked happy.
Instead, he laughed at my anger, mocking me. I won't forgive you. We're getting a divorce, I declared. Michael responded nonchalantly.
Sure, whatever. But Liam won't be staying with me. He's already grown up, so we don't need a babysitter anymore.
The man before me chuckled, suggesting that perhaps we should send Liam to a care facility. His malevolence made my stomach churn. You're so self-centered. You think you can just discard us and live as you please. Well, I won't allow it. Michael laughed, mocking me.
Not forgiving me? What power do you have? Maybe you'll file a lawsuit and demand some paltry compensation. I'll gladly pay that.
He underestimated me, assuming a mere housewife like myself had no influence. But I held an ace up my sleeve. You can come out now. Adjacent to the living room was a closed-off room where someone had been waiting. As the door swung open, my husband's expression changed.
Mom? Why are you here?
Michael stammered. My mother-in-law stepped forward.
I've heard everything. You've done something unforgivable.
I had previously contacted my mother-in-law to inform her of my husband's misdeeds. Today, I had summoned her to settle everything once and for all. Understandably, my husband was anxious. He worked at a company run by my mother-in-law, and he'd always been in awe of her as the owner.
I've been too lenient just because you're my son. But this time, I can't forgive you. You'll receive an appropriate punishment.
She informed my husband of his demotion and transfer to a regional subsidiary. Michael stammered.
Wait, Mom! Let me explain.
No, this decision is final. And it's not just about the affair. It also reflects your overall work performance.
My mother-in-law replied firmly. According to her, my husband had a history of slacking off at work, which had caused internal issues. An internal investigation revealed that he had been delegating tasks to subordinates while spending time with his mistress. Realizing he was in a disadvantageous position, my husband frantically apologized to both my mother-in-law and me.
Sorry. Please forgive me.
He desperately pleaded. But forgiveness wasn't on my mind. No. We're definitely getting a divorce. And as compensation for everything you've done, I'll be claiming substantial alimony. You'll pay up, won't you?
But, if I get demoted, I won't have enough.
Michael stuttered. Until now, he'd enjoyed an inflated salary due to being the owner's son, but that would change. Suddenly, he hesitated about paying the alimony. My mother-in-law's stern voice cut through the room.
Even now, you're only thinking about yourself? Take responsibility and clean up your mess.
Under her harsh reprimand, my husband reluctantly promised to pay the alimony. However, some days later, my husband visited our home and pleaded.
Let's reconsider the divorce.
What are you saying now? Michael had been kicked out of our house and was currently staying with his mistress. But when he visited another son, Lucas, in the hospital, he accidentally saw Lucas's true blood type. That revelation made him realize that they weren't biologically related. When he confronted his mistress, she revealed that she had been dating another man even before Michael. Lucas was the child of that other man, not Michael. It turned out that her relationship with Michael was purely driven by his high salary. However, after his affair was discovered by his mother-in-law, who is also the president of his company, he was demoted from a managerial position to a regular employee and then transferred to a regional office. As a result, his mistress also abandoned him and ended the relationship.
I have no use for you anymore.
Just as Michael had pushed Liam onto me, he himself had been manipulated and used by his mistress.
I've had an awakening. I realize now that it's just you and Liam for me. Please, forgive me.
No matter what you say, my decision to divorce remains unchanged. My husband clung to me, repeating pitiful excuses. But I firmly rejected his plea. No amount of apologies or change of heart could erase the years of deception and betrayal toward Liam and me. I can't trust someone who has lied to us for so long, I coldly declared. In his desperation, my husband lunged at me.
Who do you think allowed you to live without financial worries?
Hey, stop it. Let go of Mom.
Just then, Liam, who had just returned from school, intervened. My husband had barely interacted with our son, but Liam was strong from his judo club training. In their struggle, my husband found himself at a disadvantage.
Damn it. You're all against me.
Restrained by Liam, my husband resorted to cursing. I looked down on his pitiful state. You may think you've provided for us with your earnings, but your affair with that other family left us struggling to make ends meet. That's why I had to work as a home caregiver to support myself. I never felt indebted to you. We can manage just fine without you." As I spoke, my husband fell silent, unable to respond. Afterward, my husband and I finalized our divorce. However, there was one concern, Liam. Although I consider him my true son, we don't share a biological connection. Now that I've divorced my husband, I thought it would be best for Liam to be taken in by my mother-in-law. Yet Liam expressed his desire to stay with me.
Even without a blood tie, you're the one who has raised me through all the hardships, Mom.
His words choked me up. I decided to take custody of Liam, receiving child support payments from my ex-husband. Subsequently, my ex-husband, abandoned by both his mistress and me, repeatedly attempted to reconcile. But there was nowhere left for him to cling. Fed up with his persistence, I firmly warned him that I'd report him as a stalker if he didn't stop. Originally timid and easily swayed by authority, my ex-husband slumped and left. We never crossed paths again, but rumor has it that he remains single, leading a lonely life. My mother-in-law still occasionally visits our home even after the divorce from my husband. She has been supporting our lives financially. Gratefully accepting her kindness, I continue to focus on my work. Liam, who has learned caregiving skills from assisting me in my home care job, aspires to become a caregiver in the future. He wants to study welfare-related subjects in college. Unlike his father, Liam is empathetic and desires to help others, a wonderful young man whom I am proud of.
How did you find this story? If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's meet again in the next video.